What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's team selection time ahead of Game Week 21. We are still hopeful of getting some double Game Week fixtures confirmed before the deadline, but it still hasn't happened. So I'm going to try and talk through my team and what could change based on what we may or may not get in terms of double game week announcements, fixture rearrangements and stuff like that. And I will have another video later going into it in a bit more depth that's just not all focused around my team. So if you do enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. Alright, so with a little bit of luck involved, I've actually had a pretty good week. I'm not going to lie, I'm really happy with it. 65 points. I did take an 8-point hit, so 57 total. The hit was removing all my Arsenal players because obviously they blanked, so I had to react to the game week in front of us. I took out Ramsdale, I took out Lacazette, and I took out Saka, and I bought in Broja, which let me fund Son, who got 6 points. Obviously, Broja got 1 on the bench anyway, and 2 for De Gea. So I'm roughly kind of broken even with the hit, but the team looks better going forward. Obviously, I didn't want the Arsenal players coming back to Man City anyway. So yeah, pretty happy with the hit, and I've gone up from like 81k to 52k, so a really nice rise. Obviously there was some luck involved. The free hit didn't activate last week, so I was down about 20-25 points on that. But this week, it meant I didn't have Salah, and I chose not to buy him back. Instead, I stuck with Ronaldo and got Son in, and that turned out to be a pretty good move in the end. Right? Ronaldo was a little bit lucky with his first assist because I think he was trying to set it up to shoot himself, and it fell to McTominay, and he scored. But obviously, Ronaldo did get that tap in as well, and happy days with the 12 points. So overall, on points, I'm still down because had I kept Salah, I wouldn't have been that worse off with captaincy because I ended up captaining Jota anyway, and he was the only attacker that blanked in my team. But I would have had Josh King. So it's not just a case of saying, well, you've got Ronaldo, so you're up points. I'm still down on points, but the fact that I've gone from 78k in Game Week 18 to 52k now, and I've still got that second free hit intact, probably means I'm in a bit of a better position. So if anything, the crash probably helped me. And look, that's just lucky. It felt like bad luck this week. It now feels like a little bit of luck this week. These things tend to sometimes equal themselves out over a period of time. It just so happens that mine's happened in a couple of game weeks. So yeah, little bit of luck. I've had bad luck in the past. Now a bit of good fortune. I'm going to take it, and we just got to move on to next week. Just quickly going around the rest of the team. Bowen, I was really happy with. I'm not quite sure how Antonio only came out of an assist. I guess he didn't really have a huge amount of clear-cut chances, but he did miss a one-on-one from a Bowen assist as well. So he did get close. Son I was happy with. Foden, who I considered for captain last week. The reason I switched to Jota is because I found out that he was going to start, which I shared on the deadline stream. So I had to go for him. I wasn't 100% confident on Foden, although I did think it was likely that he started this one. And I got to be honest, with Ronaldo, I think if this was last season, I probably would have captained Ronaldo because he probably, by all the models and expected goals and expected data, probably would have come out as the top option for this week. But after watching the Newcastle game, I just couldn't do it. And I also thought there was a chance that maybe he missed a few minutes this week rather than go and play another 90 minutes. So maybe that was a bit of a mistake, but I did go for the player I knew was going to start in Jota. He was the only one that blanked, but it didn't really hurt me. A fantastic week, to be honest with you. Obviously, James got injured, which we'll come on to in a minute, and David De Gea blanked, which was annoying. But overall, really good week. Let's talk about Spitch, and then we'll see how we're looking for Game Week 21. So happy to say that I have partnered with Spitch once again for this video. If you haven't already checked them out, it's a brand new fantasy football app where you can use your fantasy football knowledge to bet on weekly tournaments. So it's not a case of having to pick a team for the season-long game, make transfers and stuff like that. You just pick the best team for the week that's coming. Obviously, this week will be Game Week 21. Now, there are different competitions, as you can see on screen. So Premier League, you can do it on the Championship, EFL Cup, Bundesliga, and all that stuff as well. I'm going to concentrate on the Premier League. Now, there are paid-for tournaments as well, so you can do that if you wish. There's also free tournaments too. It is gambling, so you need to be 18 and over, and obviously you need to gamble responsibly. There's links to begambleaware.org in the link in the description below. I'm going to go for the free tournament, this one here in the yellow at the bottom. And all you have to do is just put your team in for this week. So there's no worrying about next week or the week after. You're only relying on this week. Obviously, we know for FPL that Leicester versus Norwich is off. We also know there's a chance that Southampton versus Newcastle might be off as well. So I'm trying to avoid those teams. There are also points for tackles, interceptions, blocks and stuff like that as well. So different players come into the mix. So that's why I've got Fred in there. And if you click into a player, you can actually scroll down and see performance by match day. So when he plays, he actually doesn't do too badly at all, especially obviously if he gets the odd assist or goal here as well. That would be pretty decent. So I've got McNeil in, who I thought actually looked okay against Man United, as okay as they could be when they lost the match as they did. I've obviously got Matty Cash in there as well for Villa, Sofal for West Ham, and Gundogan. I'm actually going to add another Man City player in here as well, which is Phil Foden, if I can spell his name right, because he's listed as a midfielder. Some of the players that are kind of midfielders in FPL are forwards in this. So, for example, another player that I'm going to put up front is Rafinha. I'm hoping their game goes ahead, right? They've had a bit of a rest now. He always plays. He's still on penalties for now as well. And, of course, I'm going to have to put my boy in there, Michael Antonio. Jared Bowen could be an option as well. But you know my love for Antonio, so he's going to be in there. And my final player for defence is going to be Reguilon, who I hope starts again against Watford, which should be a pretty good fixture. I've got to choose a captain. It's definitely going to be Son, same as my FPL captain this week probably. Just confirm that, and that is it. So if you want to give it a go, link in the description. Make sure you download it. See what you think. You can always start with the free games, but remember, 18 plus and gamble responsibly. Alright, so looking ahead to Game Week 21, this is where things get tricky. You could say that FPL is just a massive mess right now, which it definitely is. You can only play the game week in front of you. The problem is there is a chance there's going to be double game weeks in Game Week 21 and even more double game weeks in Game Week 22. Now, usually by now, you'd already have the fixtures. You could plan your chip strategy. You could decide what you want to do. But it's New Year's Eve. We don't have the fixtures. The deadline's on New Year's Day. The gap between Game Week 21 and 22 is like 2 weeks anyway. And we're not quite sure exactly what's going to happen. Hopefully we get the fixtures later today. I'm going to talk more in depth later on in the Game Week preview or whatever video I do later on this evening about what might happen. And I'm also hoping by the time I do the video, we'll just have the fixtures. But right now, I am basically working off this spreadsheet. I've mentioned Ben Crellin before. If you're not following him on Twitter, make sure you do, right? He's always up to date with what's happening. And he always likes to predict where games could fall, right? And there's loads of reasons why these things are usually quite accurate. What I will say is I spoke to him before I was doing this video just to say that I was going to use this spreadsheet image and was it okay? And he said yes. He also said that in the 5 years of trying to figure out where blanks and where double game weeks will go, this is the hardest to predict, right? So this is just unprecedented in what's happening, the amount of postponements. But essentially, and I'll go into this a bit more detail later on, the ones in orange for Game Week 21 are probable double game weeks. So he gives them a 60 to 80% chance. You've got Watford against, I won't go into all the fixtures, but basically Watford, Brentford and Everton could double, right? Could double. And then you've got the yellow ones in Game Week 22 are very likely, so 80 to 100%. And then you've got some orange ones as well. So some teams like Watford could play a double game week in 21 and a double game week in 22. And other teams, it could happen, but it's less likely, right? So it's a bit of a mess. So ideally, you want players from these teams, right? So for example, where's Liverpool on this list? Liverpool are down here. Their probable double game week in Game Week 22 could be Brentford Leeds. So I'm interested in knowing that. But I also want it confirmed before I decide what strategy to do. Now, for my team, I've got a fair few double game week players for 22 anyway. You could go down the route, or I could go down the route of wildcarding this week and bench boosting next week. But I'm not sure I want to take that risk until I know the fixtures are definitely confirmed. And also, that gap between 21 and 22, who knows what might happen with COVID postponements and stuff like that. And also, right, the FA Cup replays have been scrapped so that games can be put into Game Week 22. But what if FA Cup games get called off and have to be postponed and then they get put back a few days later? Like, the whole thing is just such a mess. I'm not sure how many chips I want to use. I think if before the deadline we found out there was a bunch of games in Game Week 21 with double game weeks and I didn't have many players, I could use the free hit and then just try and work my Game Week 22 team the week after, right, and just take some hits if need be, because you can't use free hit twice in a row. So it's a really difficult situation. Just coming back to my team and where I'm at right now, David De Gea I think definitely stays. There is a chance that the game against Wolves gets called off, but I don't want to take another hit for a goalkeeper, especially one that's got fixtures to rearrange and good fixtures in the short term. I know Man United haven't been playing well defensively, but I'm not looking to move him on. Same with Trent. Okay, it's not really an okay fixture. It's a tough fixture this week, but you're always going to play Trent. He's got a possible double in 22, fairly decent fixtures afterwards. I'm definitely keeping him. Alonso and Cancelo is where it gets really tricky. I've got Reece James on the bench. He apparently has got a hamstring tear. I'm not a doctor. I'm assuming that's weeks rather than days. So he needs to be sold for me. And I probably will bench Alonso. I just think, like, if Alonso and James and everyone else for Chelsea was fit and they had a fully fit starting 11, Kovacic and Kante were playing, James and Alonso, 3 fit centre-backs and whatever, then maybe I'd be happy playing Alonso. But I'm just a bit worried about him up against Salah. And Cancelo, obviously, there was a post that he made last night, Man City have tweeted about as well. Horrible situation. His house has been, I think it's his house has been broken into and he's been attacked, right? So that's really horrible. Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully the family's okay. And I don't want to speculate too much. It's not a very nice situation, but you've got to assume there is a chance that he misses out this week. So I could have Livramento is a doubt. James is almost certainly going to miss out. Cancelo might miss out as well. So I have to make a transfer, right? One thing I've got in my mind, and this game week, like I said, is a mess. So I'm getting out all my thoughts. One thing I've got in mind is if this game for Liverpool becomes a double game week next week, Brentford and Leeds, yes, they're missing Salah and Mane because of African Cup of Nations, but ideally I'd have 3 Liverpool players. So I've got Jota, I've got Trent. The obvious one is Robertson. Now, to do Alonso to Robertson, I would have to sell James down to a 4.3 million defender. The only ones that I'm looking at are Holgate, who could have 2 double game weeks in a row, but I don't know if he would start all the games. The other one is Diop for West Ham. Obviously, they've got some centre-back injuries, so he's playing at the moment. He's probably the best option, but there's no guarantee they get a double over the next couple of weeks. And the other one is Veltman, who's now 4.2 million, has started 5 of the last 6, I think it is. So he's a possible option for Brighton as well, and they've got fixtures to rearrange too. So they're the 3 that I'm possibly looking at. If I don't go for them, then there's lots more options I could go for. I mean, I spoke about Aston Villa, although Ben doesn't think they're very likely to get a double game week now this week. So the other option is just to go for a second Man City midfielder. And because I want to make a forward transfer, which I'll come on to in a minute, I would have to do James to Laporte, not to Diaz. But Laporte looks pretty much as, not maybe as completely nailed on as Diaz, but he is starting a lot of games. He's very rarely missing out, and his goal threat's good as well. I owned him earlier on in the season. I might bring him back. So in defence, I don't think I'm going to sell any of the players you see on screen, but Reece James on the bench could go to Laporte, or he could go to Diop. I think they're the 2 front runners right now for very different reasons. It all depends how much I want to get Robertson next week. If it turns out that I don't need to use any chips this week, then I will probably use my free hit in game week 22. So therefore, I don't necessarily need to worry about having Robertson, and I'd probably just get Laporte in this week, and they've got good fixtures afterwards, right? So that's where my head's at right now. Things are messy. Let's see if it gets any better for midfield. Okay, so I think things are looking all right, okay? Jota started again last week against Leicester. Didn't get anything, but it's nice to see that he's starting, more than Firmino at the moment. There is obviously a worry against Chelsea that he doesn't play. It could be Firmino, Salah and Mane. I mean, Salah and Mane are almost guaranteed to start, I would assume, before they go to African Cup of Nations. I don't think it's like guaranteed that Jota doesn't start, but there has to be a lot of potential that doesn't happen. Now, I won't get rid of him because while Salah and Mane are away, he's going to be absolutely nailed. Liverpool got some pretty good fixtures. They might have that double as well. But again, it's something else to consider when I'm... I've taken hits the last couple of weeks, a -4, then a -8. I'm almost certainly going to take another hit this week because I've got no bench whatsoever. And if Jota misses out, I'm going to need someone, right? And I wouldn't usually upgrade a bench player, but there's just too much uncertainty with the team this week. I don't want to cover all eventualities like Cancelo missing and Jota missing, but to have one player on the bench this week will probably be quite ideal. So what I'll probably do is bench Alonso, and then he will probably come on for someone, but I'll see who I end up bringing in. Like if I bring in Laporte, I'd probably play Laporte ahead of Alonso and bench Alonso, knowing that he'll probably just come on anyway. As things stand, Son is my captain, because there's no double game weeks confirmed. If we go back to this spreadsheet, the ones that are kind of probable are Watford, Brentford and Everton. I don't see me bringing in a Brentford player right now. They haven't got that bad fixtures, but I just don't really want Tony. It just doesn't fit into my team right now, so I'm probably not going there. Everton would be really interesting because they've got the potential to have a double this week and maybe a double next week as well. But Calvert-Lewin, I just don't know how confident I'd be around his minutes, and there's not really anyone else apart from Gray that I would want, and the double would probably be Brighton at home and Leicester at home. So is that good enough to captain? I think where I'd probably go is Watford, right? Just bring in a Watford attacker and captain one of them. I always like captaining a double game week player, but as things stand, if we don't find out about that, I will probably captain Son. Bowen just seems to start most games, so I'm happy enough with him going forward. Obviously, he was great last week. Foden he's got to be a bit of a doubt to start because he missed 2, then he played the last one. I'm hopeful that he plays. I think that we might see Mahrez come in before he goes off to African Cup of Nations, and I think we might see Sterling come in on the left, and I'm hopeful that Foden will play in that number 9 position, and we might just see some rotation elsewhere. So I think for now I want to keep him. Again, if we get confirmation of doubles and there's a midfielder that's a bit cheaper that I want to get, then I might just do that just to fund like other transfers for either this week or next week. So Foden is potentially out for a transfer. Maddison was someone I was looking at, but then Leicester versus Norwich got postponed. So I think right now the midfield is fairly settled. I think the only player at risk from a transfer is Foden. And to be honest, unless things get even more messy than they are, I'm probably just going to keep him. Right, then we bring in the forwards. Cristiano Ronaldo, obviously really frustrated against Newcastle, then pretty good against Burnley. I think I've got to keep him for now. I'm obviously not going to go back to Salah this week. There's way too many other things going on. Again, like I said on yesterday's video when I talked about him, if you've got him, he's definitely a captain option this week. But there's no need for me to bring him back when I was already looking at Son captain anyway. So Ronaldo will stay because there's just other things I need to be worrying about, like the Chelsea defenders and stuff like that. Similar with Antonio, right? He's now got 2 returns in a row. He's had a little bit of a rest. I'm fairly happy to own him going forward, right? The fixtures are pretty good. The issue for me is Broja. Now, I bought him in last week to enable the move to get Son, knowing that there was a chance that he got benched, which he did against Spurs. Hopeful that he would then come in and play against Newcastle, right? So far, that all sounds pretty good. Right? He looks like a pretty good striker. He's done really well for Southampton. Newcastle are not a great defence, although they did all right against Man United, I suppose. And Broja could definitely get some points in that game. The problem is there's rumours going around that Southampton versus Newcastle could be called off. Now, we've got to be really careful about these rumours because there was rumours about the Palace game the other day being called off, and it wasn't. The one against Spurs, I think it was. And then other games there's rumours and then they do get called off. So I don't want to make any hasty decisions. I've got to wait until the deadline to make my moves. I don't care what players are going up or down in price. It's probably not going to affect me too much. Now, if I want to sell him, I don't really want to spend too much money on that spot. I can't really get to Calvert-Lewin without really reshuffling funds, and I'm still a bit sceptical about how many minutes he's going to come in and play straight away. So I think I would go to a Watford attacker because they've got a lot of games to rearrange, likelihood of getting a double over 21 or 22, possibly both as well. Now, interestingly, Dennis is apparently not going to African Cup of Nations. So if you got him, especially if you got him cheap while everyone else was getting King, fair play. You're probably really happy right now. So it looks like he's going to be available, but he's now 0.3 million more than King. King's underlying stats are still a little bit better. We're not quite sure who's going to play number 9 most weeks. I think last week, again, when they played, they did chop and change quite a bit. I actually think Josh King was more often in the central position. So I don't think it's something we can definitely say Dennis is the central striker. Josh King's always going to play wide. It looks like depending on the opposition, depending on what's going on in the match, they're going to chop and change. So King's cheaper and he's on penalties as well. As far as we know, he took the last one. He should still be on pens. So I think I'm still favouring him just to save a bit of money. So as I mentioned before, let me just show you, right, because it's easier to visualise. If I come back to my team, if I want to do Broja to King, I'm not completely ruling out Dennis, and I do think he's a good option, right? I'm not kind of saying he's a bad option, but I think for less money, I'd probably just go for King now. And let's be honest, a lot of people got Dennis because he was less money anyway, right? And then I sell James. I can actually afford to go to Laporte. So that is pretty tempting because I think against Arsenal, they'll control the game. Good chance of a clean sheet. And okay, Chelsea at home's not great, but if I end up free hitting, I wouldn't have him anyway. Then he comes back to a pretty good fixture run. And like I said, he is pretty nailed on, right? He's started the last 6 games, okay? So Laporte's pretty good. So I could just do that. Another 4-point hit. I would play Cancelo, Trent and Laporte. Alonso would go to the bench. I'd play all 3 attackers, all 4 midfielders. And then if Cancelo misses out or Jota misses out, then Alonso would come in. And I just risk that Livramento obviously plays, but obviously if I've sold Broja, I'm selling him because I'm thinking the match is going to be called off. So Livramento will get called off as well, and Brownhill I think was one of the players that's got COVID. I just don't think it's worth doing another transfer. Like potentially I could go down to a cheaper player like Veltman and upgrade Livramento to someone else, like a Spurs defender, for example, and take a -8. But I think I'd only do that if I 100% knew that Cancelo or Jota weren't going to start. So right now, this is probably without knowing about all future doubles and stuff like that, just going on Southampton being postponed, potentially, not definitely, this is my favourite transfer. James to Laporte, king in for Broja for a hit. I've only owned Broja for 1 week. He didn't even play for me, but that is just the situation we're in right now. FPL's a mess. In some ways, it sucks. In some ways, I'm kind of liking the chaos. Obviously, some people are getting luckier than others. I got a bit of luck this week, a little bit less luck the week before. That happens in FPL. But yeah, that's how things are looking. So Broja to king and James to Laporte to bench Alonso is currently what I'm thinking. Son will be my captain unless we get double game week news. And that is my team. Let me know in the comments below, what have I missed? There we go. If you enjoyed that, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Like I said, if you've got any comments on my teams, potential transfers, is Diop that good an option? Is one of the centre-backs going to be back soon, like Zuma maybe? Should I look at getting Veltman because they've got quite a few injuries as well? There's lots of options. I don't quite know exactly where I'm going to go, but I'm probably going to make some more transfers this week, that's for sure. Don't forget to check out Spitch if you haven't already. 18 and over. Remember, gamble responsibly. There is links in the description below if you want to check that out. I'll be back later today, probably with a game week preview style video, going a bit more in depth about which players to target for the double game weeks. Hopefully we get the fixtures. There'll be something later on. I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but it will be there. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll see you again soon.